Every week, my co-host Melissa Wallace and I
Is there an
will
echo?
provide you
I don't
with
think
my
I hear an
team's
echo.
unique marketing approach
I don't
to
hear an
selling
echo.
homes
Okay, we're
and share
good.
with you our
Think we're good.
expertise in navigating the home buying process. We value the experience of our agents at Boston Connect Real Estate so much that not only will you hear my perspective on real estate topics, occasionally you will hear the expert thoughts and opinions of our experienced agents at Boston Connect Real Estate. Be a part of our roundtable.
echo.
If you have any
No
questions
echo.
during the
Here we
show,
go.
please call 781-837-4900. We'd love to talk real estate. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and wherever you like to listen to podcasts at Talk Real Estate Roundtable. If you would like a one-on-one
do I
consultation
sound
with
far
me and my
away
team
on your-
to discuss your
No.
real estate
Do I
needs,
sound okay?
you can
A little
connect
bit?
with me
So
at
I think my headphones would be go
bostonconnect.com
up, but
or
I'll put them up when you do that.
781-826-8000. Now, sit back, relax, take good notes, and let's talk real estate.
And hello to all my South Shore neighbors. You are listening to Talk Real Estate Roundtable. My name is Melissa Wallace, and I am joined by the one and only Sue Bollinger.
Hello.
Hello. You are not having deja vu. This is another week with Sue Bollinger.
2 weeks in a row.
2 weeks in a row. I know. I know. When I asked you today, I was like, oh, I hope she'd have fun last week. So, I mean, we had a great show last week. It was really good.
Great show.
Yeah. Who did I talk to? Oh, Michelle Fay actually came into the office today, and she's like, "Oh, I listened to a couple of your past shows, and they've been great. So people are listening."
I love Michelle.
I know.
Such a rock star. She's like
She
is.
She's killing it. I mean, I was talking to. I talked to you about it last Tuesday. I talked to Tracy Grady, who's a full-time realtor here at Boston Connect Real Estate as well, who joined me last Saturday, just talking about just how busy you guys are. And I'm so proud of you guys for, the year's not halfway over, almost. Yeah. But you guys are honestly killing it.
Yeah, it's been really busy. Today alone, like I was telling you, I had
tell me about your day.
I had, the first part of the day was staging a property for photos, and then the photographer came and we spent an hour getting some perfect photos for my new listing in Brockton at 20 Emery. So coming on this weekend. Great location too. It's near the, Route 24.
Oh,
So,
yeah. I know that area.
And then I had 2 purchase and sales that had to get signed, 1 offer that had to get signed. I had to and then meet another client at a property that's already under agreement to get some measurements and things for them. So,
yeah.
And then I ran as fast as I could here. And I made it.
You did make it, and I'm so grateful for you. And that was a little bit of a sneak peek about what we're going to be talking about tonight. But in case somebody didn't catch the show last week or any of the other shows that you've been on, why don't you reintroduce yourselves to all of our listeners?
Sure. My name is Sue Bollinger, and I'm a full-time realtor. I've been doing this for over 20 years. And you can reach me if you have any questions at 508-317-5729, or you can email me at sbollinger@bostonconnect.com. I've been doing this. I live in Pembroke. I've lived here for 15 years and, raised my family here. I grew up here as well. So this is sort of my center. But I do all of the South Shore, and I do Norfolk County as well. And, I go pretty far. Often.
Yeah, you do.
I'm actually in New Bedford looking at properties with a client right now. So not this very minute.
Not this very. You're not on the road.
I'm not on the road
right this moment.
I do. I go everywhere.
Yeah.
So
you really do. I think I have Larry in the studio tonight, right, Larry?
I'm here. Hi.
Hello, Larry.
Hi. What's going on?
Good. Saturday I had an echo, and I don't have one tonight, and I love that.
Yes.
So I can have my headphones on and
that's
hear
because
you.
because this button right here now is if you start talking now, you'll probably hear yourself coming back. Go ahead and do it. See?
Oh, yes, I hear you.
Go. All right. So we shut that button off.
Yes, thank you.
The new studio that'll be programmed into the board should never happen.
Love that.
Yeah.
Yes, so I'm glad I can hear you tonight. But if you guys want to join in on our discussion, question and you want to call or text Larry at the studio, 781-837-4900 is the number. Again, it is 781-837-4900, and they have a text feature now, so you can text that number.
Oh, that's great.
If you have any questions or you want to join in on our discussion. We're also live on Facebook, so be sure to follow Boston Connect Real Estate. We're also live on Sharon Costa McNamara. We're live on YouTube, so Boston Connect TV on YouTube. And I think we're on Sharon's LinkedIn too. So
Excellent.
so if you happen to watch on LinkedIn, we're there as well. But yeah, so give us a wave. I put the AC on for the first time today in the office, so of course I had some short sleeves on, and then I was like, oh, I'm a little chilly. So, and I brought a sweatshirt today because I do not complain about being cold. It's a gift to be cold.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
I would prefer to put the AC on than to have to put the heat on.
I would rather put layers on than to have to take layers off.
Absolutely.
So,
Me too.
And I like to keep it nice and cold here. Yeah. So if anybody comes by, make sure to bring a sweatshirt. Bring a sweater.
It's refreshing after the day I've had.
Yeah.
To be honest.
So we're going to have some fun with you guys tonight. This is a show that we've done in the past. Sue, you haven't done that with me. I don't know if we've done it so far this year, but I know the last time I did it was with Michelle Fay. We mentioned her earlier in the show. And she actually got an accepted offer on her listing in Pembroke.
So quickly.
Claps all
Yeah,
around.
she sold that very quickly.
Yeah.
Good
So
job.
congratulations, Michelle. But yeah, we're going to be talking about some real estate lingo. So some things that we might say or do during our everyday life here in real estate, that sort of comes second nature to us. And sometimes we're just talking or I'm talking to somebody and they're like, huh? Right. And I'll just be like, oh, yeah, so that means this. Yeah. And this means that. Exactly. And this is the importance of this. So we're just going to have some fun with you guys tonight. Some people, really like when we do this show. So it's a beautiful day, and you've had a busy day. I've had a really busy day, too, here at the office. And I just thought that this would be a nice little,
perfect.
Nice little fun, easy show for us to do.
I love this. Yeah.
Okay, so let's sort of get into it. So I want to start off with some common real estate terms. So, we do have some stuff going on in our industry. I'll give that little disclaimer. But right now, there are a couple different titles that, we can have when we sell real estate. So there's a realtor, there's a salesperson, and there's a broker.
Yes.
You are a broker. You're a broker associate here at Boston Connect Real Estate. So can you explain to some of our listeners what the difference between those three are?
Absolutely. And just so people understand, it's realtor, not realtor.
Realtor. So I like to say
realtor.
Realtor.
Yeah, realtor is good, but it's not realtor. So basically, a realtor is somebody who is a member of the National Association of Realtors. So that's we have a national association. Most people around here belong to the National Association of Realtors. There are some states where it's required in order to sell real estate. Which
interesting. That'll be interesting moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's required, and if you don't do it, you can't get on their MLS. So MLS is the multiple listing service.
I was going to say, what is MLS?
Yeah.
To us,
So
it's like...
when we get to So the multiple listing services is where all the realtors put their listings so that all realtors have access to it. All real estate agents.
Yeah, because I was going to say
salespersons
salespersons can have access to MLS as well. But yeah, so
there's a difference. So, you can be a real estate agent or a salesperson, or you can be a realtor, but they both do the same thing. It's just that if you're a member, traditionally, if you've been a member of the National Association of Realtors, you are held to sort of a higher standard. We have a whole process where, you have to abide by the ethics.
Yeah.
We have a whole code of ethics that we all follow that includes playing nice in the sandbox, so to speak.
Yeah.
Not hurting members of the public or other realtors and, what is, like that kind of thing. So if you're a real estate agent, doesn't mean you're not ethical. It's just you're not held to the same standard.
Yeah.
Theoretically.
Yeah. Theoretically.
Yes.
What about a broker?
So when you first get licensed, so let me just backtrack. So when
Okay.
you go get your real estate license, so a lot of people have thought like, oh, I want to become a realtor and I want to get my real estate license. You have to take a class that is, I think it's 40
hours in Massachusetts.
So
Yeah.
it's 40 hours in Massachusetts. It's changed over the years, believe it or not.
Really?
Like, it wasn't always that. It used to be like 30 or 25 or something.
Yeah. I think we're one of the lowest hours state
Absolutely.
that was required. Yeah.
I honestly think it should be like
be more.
100.
Gosh, put Sue on a board somewhere and she'll have it up to like 200. Yeah. So get your license now, people.
So it's 40 hours and then you become a salesperson. So in order to be a broker, you have to be a full-time salesperson
Yeah.
for at least 3 years. And you have to get documentation that you've been selling real estate for at least 3 years.
Yeah. From the brokerage that you work for, correct?
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And so once you do that, then you take another 40 hours. And then you have to take another state test to prove that you have the knowledge for a broker. So
How long have you had your broker's license?
it's a good question.
The year is 2024. Does that help you?
I want to say, I would say like 15 years maybe.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know it was that long.
Yeah, it's between like 12 to 15 years maybe.
And why do you want to get your broker's license?
Actually, no, it's longer than that. It's like probably 16 or 17. I think back in the day, I thought maybe I'd open my own office. And then I came to work for Sharon and said, they do way too much work here. I don't want to, I'll just work
I'll
here.
be an associate broker. I'll be an independent contractor. You can you can own the company.
There's way too much going on. Like,
Yeah.
it's a lot to be a broker.
It's
to
a lot
own
to run a company and own
really is.
and own a company, own an office. So
Yes. And honestly, Sharon does a great job with
Yeah.
this business.
Yeah,
So
she really does.
I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. You
Yeah.
know, I'm really happy here.
yeah.
And I've been here since 1 year in.
Yeah.
So, you know, I have no desire to go anywhere else.
Yeah, please don't. And please don't. And if you were, like, don't say it here on the show.
I wouldn't want to.
No.
So-
Yeah, no. We're so lucky to have you. And we've been blessed this whole time. We've been open since 2010. So 14 years.
Yeah.
And that's awesome.
Yeah.
We're so happy that you're here and
Yeah.
we're grateful for you. So yeah, we have a couple associate brokers. Laura Greeny is associate broker. Both the Flynn, so Team Flynn, Trish and Nick Flynn are both brokers. Who else? Anybody else?
No.
No. I think that's it. But Sharon is broker owner, so she's the broker on record for the company. So she's responsible. Yeah. She's responsible for us.
Yes, exactly.
But yeah, that's sort of like a glossy version of the difference between those three.
Yep.
What's the difference between a buyer's agent and a seller's agent? Some people don't know.
Some people, surprisingly, some people don't know.
Yeah, some
I
people
was
don't
just
know.
gonna look up for the acronym, but it's not here. But so basically, a buyer's agent. Or the difference is the fiduciary responsibility. So if you're a buyer's agent, your fiduciary responsibility is to your buyer, and same for a seller's agent.
Yeah.
So if I'm working as a seller's agent and you come into my open house and you're a buyer and you're unrepresented, I work for the seller.
Yeah.
My job is to get the highest and best possible offer for my client.
Which I think is very important to note. So for anybody who is not currently working with a buyer's agent, or just sort of dabbles in using a buyer's agent, and, you know, when you're going to an open house, the person who is running that open house represents the seller. So, you know, I've heard some stories, especially lately, of, you know, people coming into open houses and sort of just like word vomiting.
Yeah.
And just like letting it all like lay out like, oh, here, this is what I'm thinking. And, you know, one of our agents in particular was just like, this is not a conversation you should be having
Right.
with me, because that person was actually working with a buyer's agent. So,
Yes.
they quickly let the buyer, or the person who came into the open house, who ended up putting in an offer, with their agent, but just said, my responsibility is to the seller. I am not the person you should be having this conversation with.
Right.
And sort of just shut it down from there.
Yeah.
Just like letting her know what his negotiation tactics were going to be.
Yeah, that's never good.
She was kind of like, what? Why are you saying that to me?
That is never good.
Yeah, never good. So, I think that is really important. And documentation is always good to have when
Yes.
being represented by somebody. Just putting that out there as well.
Really, the industry is changing so much, and now it's more important than ever that you hire a buyer's agent and sign the contract with the buyer's agent if you're able. And the thing is that buyer agency is so important, and it can be done. You can there's a whole thing going on right now, because there's been some lawsuits with the National Association of Realtors, and now they're going to make all buyers go into a buyer agency contract with their agents, and buyers are scared. They're like, oh, well, I don't want to have to pay for representation, but there's so many ways to have that fee wrapped into it's still going to be done similarly. Sellers are still going to be willing to pay a buyer's agent, so there's still ways around it.
Yeah.
Am I describing that? Did I leave anything out there?
Listen, it's all sort of up in the air.
all up in the
We'll
air.
see. We'll see what happens. Now it's going to be August, but
But it's worth the money because
Yeah.
you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
Not only do you not know what the market value is of the property, as a buyer, you don't even know what comparables you should be looking at for the most part. 90% of the time when I run comps, a buyer will come back and say, well, what about this house, and this house? And I'll have to say, well, they're not comps because A, B, C, and D. And they truly don't know. So, just that alone, negotiation strategies.
Yeah.
There's so much involved that it's really important to have a buyer's agent working on your behalf. So there's a big difference. And again, the buyer's agent works for the buyer. The fiduciary responsibility is for the buyer.
Yeah.
The seller's agent has the seller. It works for the seller and vice versa. So the buyer's agent's responsibility is to not only help the buyer to research all the disclosures on the property, but also try to get the best price for the house and not overpay. Unless they want to overpay.
unless they do, unless that's the emotional value that they're
Yeah.
putting behind it. But
Exactly.
I also want to touch upon the importance of they're not working against each other. So
Right.
like buyer's agents and seller's agent aren't, even though they're representing their own clients, not fighting each other.
Well, you have to be fair and honest. That's
Yeah.
part of it. It's honesty is part of the whole process with both the buyer and the seller agent. You have to be honest and fair.
Yeah.
So
I just think that, even when you're negotiating, it's important to always keep in mind, you're working towards a common goal, and that's to make sure that everybody is happy. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but making sure that somebody's buying a house and somebody's selling a house, and everyone is coming to terms in agreeing to everything that's sort of
Right.
going on there.
Right.
And no matter what, things always go a lot more smoothly when, both sides are just sort of reasonable.
yeah, absolutely.
But we don't live in a perfect world, but although we really try to. We really try to.
Exactly.
I want to talk about the difference between a buyer's market and a seller's market. I mean, I feel like that's sort of self-explanatory of what each of those are, but
Yeah.
a term that I don't love hearing is oh, the market's hot. And I was
Yeah.
all right, well, for who?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
For what?
Define that.
Define what makes the market hot.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it just depends on what side of the fence you're on. Are you a seller or are you a buyer? You know?
Absolutely. Yeah, if you want to sell your home, right now the inventory is still so low. I mean, we're seeing a lot more come on, which is fantastic. It makes me so happy to see more properties coming on the market now, but it's still so low that we have a whole bunch of buyers waiting to buy the right property, and there's still, multiple bids.
Yeah.
And so forth.
I will say, we talked about this in our roundtable discussion today. So we always have a Tuesday roundtable or some sort of discussion here in the office. And something that was brought up today was just setting expectations when it comes to pricing. And, you're not always going to get multiple offers. And I know that that's sort of like terrible to say because a lot of people think that they are going to.
Yes.
But, if you don't, and it's been on for a little while, there might need to be some sort of assessment going on there.
Well, honestly, in this market, I feel like if you're not getting interest in the first couple of weeks, something's wrong.
Well, the thing is that buyers are so smart right now. And, with interest rates the way that they are and the world the way that it is right now, it's sort of an unknown what's going to happen. It's an election year, and I know that is sort of a touchy subject, but it's the truth. Every 4 years, we come up with this little like pause for a minute because we don't know which way anything is going to go. So with sort of that being the unknown, buyers are really, really smart and savvy right now.
Yeah.
So if something is overpriced, they're not going to offer.
They're not
more.
going to look at
they're
it.
Not going to look at it.
If the market value's $450 and you're like, I'm trying for $475. And you go on the market at $475, you're going to get nobody looking at it because they're already thinking like, why would I go here? I could barely afford it anyways.
Yeah.
This is the house I wanted, but I could barely afford it anyways. And they're already $25,000 higher than the market value. And I'm going to have to overbid. So I'm not even about looking at it.
Well, affordability is just such a big factor in really everything. I mean, how many times have you gone to the grocery store and you leave with $200 worth of one bag?
Everything is like,
2 bags worth of thing,
Exactly.
It's just everything is so expensive. So, buyers are being very smart and savvy with their money right now.
Yeah.
Not that they haven't been in the past, but just, right now they just sort of have to with the cost of living the way that it is.
Right.
I mean, this is Massachusetts. It costs a lot to live here. So buyers are being smart and savvy, and that's just sort of what we were talking about today.
Yeah.
Because there are some properties that have been sitting for a little bit. Doesn't mean that anything is wrong, quote unquote. If you're watching us on Facebook, I have quotes up. With the property, it just might mean that somebody just hasn't come along that wants to purchase it at that price, or they just feel as though it's overpriced and they'll wait until it comes down.
Yeah, exactly.
There are a lot of factors when it comes to that, but I would say generally those are the
it's
ones.
In my opinion, whenever a property sits on the market too long, and it's sad because today we're saying like, oh, what's too long? Is like 3 weeks too long? If this was 2019, it would be like
before that. When I first started working, I didn't work really for the office. I was hired to work on Sharon and Mary's team in the very beginning. So 8 years ago, I've been here 8 years now. I worked on their team, and one of my responsibilities was to call all of their sellers and essentially beg them if we can do open houses, because they had been on, the market. It was definitely, a buyer's market at the time. So there was a lot of inventory that, people, weren't going up against 20 offers,
Usual market
things,
time was 6 months.
Yes. People, properties, quote unquote, stat. And it doesn't mean that anything was wrong with it or anything like that, that my responsibility was to call and beg.
Yeah.
Please.
Give us an opportunity.
Is there any chance that we can do an open house this Saturday?
Yeah.
And some people would say no. They'd be like, no.
Yeah.
And some people would be like, oh gosh, you're calling again.
Yeah.
I'd be like, yes,
exactly.
please. Like we're doing it. We want to sell it,
Yeah. But this time it's like 3 weeks. So 3 weeks, if you're still on the market after 3 weeks, then you have to think like, I don't care what it is. If let's say you're a house that's next to power lines and, it's been on for 3 weeks. Is it the power lines? Well, maybe, but all it's doing is reducing your market value. So you have to adjust by price.
Yeah.
you want to get your house sold and you've been on the market for 3 weeks, you have to adjust by price. That's just what it is.
Yeah.
Sometimes you things you do inside can fix it up a little bit, if you hadn't listened to your realtor when you're first going out the gate about doing it, right? So
Just listen to the advice.
listen to the advice and then you'll be okay.
I want to talk a little bit about how you get to the price. So,
Yes.
and we talk about this all the time. So CMA. So
Yeah.
what is a CMA? What does it contain? And how is it useful?
So we already did talk about it a little bit as a buyer's agent, both as a buyer's agent and a seller's agent, we do what is called a comparative market analysis. So CMA, comparative market analysis. And so we're looking at a snippet of time, usually 3 to 6 months past sales. And to be honest with you, I try to go like the last 3 months because the market changes so often, but you want to go at the very least like 6 months. Like you don't try not to go further than that back.
Yeah.
And then you look at similar properties. So you look at, the size of the property, the style of the property. So for example, you're not going to compare a 4-bedroom colonial with a 2-bedroom ranch.
Yeah.
Even if they're the same size, you just won't because they're different styles. Each buyer has a different idea in mind of what they want for a house.
That would either be a very large ranch or a very little colonial. Those two were the same.
But surprisingly, I've seen
Apples to
colonials.
apples.
Yeah, you have to look at apples to apples, exactly. So it's not apples to oranges or apples to bananas because that just doesn't work. It doesn't matter if they're the same size. So they have to be the same style and size. And then also you want to look at things like amenities and, the size of the lot. And, you want to, and then you look at properties that have sold within a couple of miles of the property you're trying to do a market analysis on.
Yeah.
So there's a lot that goes into it. And then you have to look at all of these factors and figure out the best price for a house, which I feel like, as time goes on, the longer I've been in real estate, the more close my pricing becomes, the actual end sale price. Because the longer you do it, you really get an idea of like the market and how to really fine tune it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's really important. You want to make sure that, that market analysis, give you a really good snapshot of like how close. Like sometimes I'll do a market analysis and the house will need some work and I'll say, well, this is the price you would get today with doing nothing. And if you do A, B, C, and D, and you paint this and you do this, and you're going to get this price, and so hopefully, exactly.
Yeah. But you sort of give a range.
Give a range.
Yeah, you give a range, and at the end of the day, it's the seller's choice where to sort of put their house on.
Yep.
But also the agent has the right to say, no, this just isn't for me. So
yeah.
If the expectation is unrealistic, then the agent has the opportunity to walk away as well. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. You both have to agree.
yeah, you both have to agree. But that's why, and the agent will give you a range. So, you have a low end and a high end and sort of, what each agent is a little bit different for how much, they put their gap in their range.
Right.
But, it's not like here's $500,000 and here's $1 million. Pick a number in between. It's not like that. It's a little bit tighter than that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But like I said, at the end of the day, it is it's the seller's choice of what to go on the market for, and if the agent agrees to that, then you move on to the next step.
Right. Absolutely.
But
and then usually the at that point the agent will, if you're a seller's agent, at that point the agent will discuss commission and they'll give you sort of a net sheet and show you sort of like what to expect for closing costs and stamp taxes and all that stuff. So so you have an all-in picture of the cost of selling your home.
Yeah. I do sort of want to talk about closing costs and to explain what closing costs are and how do we come up with what that number is.
So it's different from a buyer to a seller, of course. So if you're talking a seller, you have commission. So, this is really, you have to pay the commission. And then on top of that, there are the Massachusetts, we're in Massachusetts, right? So
Gotta pay
Massachusetts,
taxes.
you have to pay your stamp taxes, and that's $4.56 per thousand of the sale price. So that's really important. And then, if you live in like Plimpton or Pembroke or one of these surrounding towns, you have a Title V inspection that'll need to be done. That costs a little bit of money. You have to have your deed written for the new buyer at closing, so that costs a little bit of money. You have the payoff of your mortgage. So if you have a mortgage on your house, it actually costs the attorney, to overnight the documents and to pay things off. So there's usually
attorney fees
for that. And then there's fees for writing the purchase and sales.
Yeah.
So you need to have an attorney represent you to write the purchase and sale agreement and negotiate with the other attorney for the buyer. So that's just on the seller side. So there's a lot of, and your realtor will go over all those costs with you. But it's really important to have an upfront idea of what to expect, so that you're not going to the closing table thinking your number's one thing and then you're like a few thousand short because you didn't know.
Well, there might be also some like prorated fees, like whether it's property taxes or the trash bill, water, those types of things that are prorated because, I know, like, the water you pay twice a year or whatever, but like it's you don't always have to pay, you don't always get the bill the day that you're moving. Like you have to pay for the water that you used. So you do a final water reading, and
it's up to the day of closing up the final water reading, and they do prorate, and then the taxes. So some towns will collect taxes in advance, and some towns will collected in arrears, and so sometimes you owe a little bit of money, so you'll get to the closing table and you have to pay a certain amount, and sometimes you've already paid it and you get it reimbursed by the buyer. So it just depends on what your town does.
Buyers, if you're purchasing a home that has oil, you just closed your eyes like, yes.
Because I always forget about that one, but it's important.
I just popped into my head. So, when you're purchasing a home that has oil heat or, oil in the home, you're 9 times out of 10 writing a check at closing to pay for the remaining oil that's in that tank. There are ways to negotiate, but that is something that you discuss with your agent. Somebody's got to pay for it.
Somebody's got to pay that oil, and 9 times out of 10, the seller wants the money for the oil that they're leaving behind in the tank. Otherwise, you don't want them to let it go bone dry, so you move in and have to repump whatever put some oil in.
And my friend just sent me a picture of her oil bill. She just got oil, and I'm like, oh my, I am glad that I don't have that.
But I heard somewhere that gas is similar in price right now. So
my gas bill is pretty low. I don't even remember what it was. Pretty low. My electric bill is pretty low. My water bill was $73.
That's not bad.
These are all things that I was like, all right, they're okay. They're okay.
It's when you have 4 kids living at home that it becomes a little bit more expensive, because they leave the lights on in the basement, and then they leave the lights on over the garage and in their rooms.
I have 2 cats that don't know how to turn the lights on, and they don't take showers. So.
It gets a little bit more.
I got a good deal over there.
The half-hour long shower.
No, I don't look forward to that. Or those bills, and I don't envy you for those bills.
And they all just came home from college too, so my house is full again, and all the bills are going to
bills go up. Plus you have a pool, so
the pool is expensive too. People, I have so many buyers are like, oh, I can't wait to have a pool, and you don't realize, but you have to pay to have that filter running. We run our filter all night so that it's ready for the next day. You need to filter the water.
I don't know anything about that.
I
mean, Yeah, no, I don't know. I don't know anything about. I just remember when I lived at Mary and Sam's, like they'd be like, "Oh, did you turn the pool off?"
Yeah.
I think I've turned the pool off once. It was not my responsibility because I don't know how to. So
Yeah.
and I never learned. So it was like,
Yeah.
somebody turned the pool off every day.
Yeah, because you have to. A lot of people put them on a timer.
Yeah.
So it's just easier.
Yeah.
You know.
I've heard that before.
And then if you heat your pool, that's a whole other expense.
Yeah.
That's very expensive.
Yeah.
But you know.
So getting back to, a property being on the market. So DOM is days on market. So that literally means how many days a property has been on the market.
Yes.
You can see that. I want to get back to MLS though. So multiple listing services. We're sort of bouncing around all over the place, but we talked about it earlier in the show. MLS, that's where we put all of that information out, into the world. But it's the third-party sites like, the Z Word, so Zillow, Realtor.com, all those third-party sites pull from MLS. So MLS is the hub. So it's like where we put all the information out for all the buyers to see.
Yeah.
Not all of the information is pulled to those third-party sites, especially not correctly.
Right.
Because it's not the same information. Like they don't require the same information. So some things may be missing. Some things may not be, in MLS, but it's
true.
Required in Zillow or something. So it's not always accurate. The most accurate you can get is, getting those emails directly from MLS.
It's so important. Like even square footage. So like some people, if you're listing a raised ranch, you put the square footage, the total square footage, and then you disclose under like 300 of that is
additional,
is in the lower level.
Yeah.
But if you're on a third party site, you can't see that. It just looks like you have 2,000 square feet when it's actually.
And then you show up at the house and you're like,
yeah, this is a lot smaller than I
question
thought.
mark?
Yeah, exactly. This makes no sense. So it's really important to work directly with a realtor and get the information directly from MLS.
Yeah, and that's just sort of, that's why we're not huge fans of these third-party sites is because they're not accurately depicting these properties that you're working so hard in representing.
Right.
Especially when you press a button and you get connected to somebody who has no idea that the property even exists.
Right.
You're just better off working with your buyer's agent or if you don't have an agent, it's just going directly to the listing agent.
There's one site that you can go to, and I won't say who it is, but you go to the site and it offers you, it says it's available to be shown now. Click here. Or whatever. And so I've had people call me up and say, well, it says that it's available to be shown right now. And I'm like, but on MLS it says no showings until Friday.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have to really check with your realtor because that's not always accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's why you got to work with a realtor.
Yes.
Got to work with an agent.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. So you got an accepted offer, and now you're moving to PSA. What does that mean?
The purchase and sale agreement. Yeah. So, yes, or P&S. It's also called P&S. So, so somebody's asking about a P&S. So in Massachusetts, and this is different than many other states, by the way.
Yeah.
In Massachusetts, we have sort of a two-step process. We have the offer, and the offer is kind of like the outline.
Yeah.
So if you remember back in high school days or college days and you had to write an essay, you'd write the outline first and then you'd write your essay afterwards. It's like a longer document. So the outline is the offer. It's still a legally binding document, but it basically tells, okay, well, this is how much we're going to pay. This is when we're going to sign the purchase and sale. This is when we're going to do the home inspection. We're going to put down an additional deposit, blah, blah, blah. So it has it all written out. Yeah. And then you hand it off to the attorneys to write a purchase and sale agreement. And they come up with a much longer document that has a lot more legalese and is a little bit, they negotiate, additional terms that have something to do with the title and how it's going to be delivered and so forth. So the purchase and sale is usually signed about 10 days after the accepted offer. Yeah. Generally speaking, if the home inspection's done. This is how it's always been done. In recent years, like the last couple of years, it's been Like sometimes people go right to purchase and sale. They sign the offer and then 2 days later they'll sign the purchase and sale because they're skipping the home inspection or something like that.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, that's what P&S means, or PSA.
And I'll just give this one out, due diligence. So you have that time period to do your due diligence, which means you have a period of time that is available, after a purchase agreement is signed, but it gives you time to sort of fully examine the property. So you can have a home inspection or,
Right.
a pest inspection and water tests, things like that. To do your due diligence, time to go to town hall, get, look into permits and stuff like that,
Yes.
just to make sure that there's nothing that is going on with the property that would change your mind about purchasing it.
And generally speaking, in Massachusetts, it's about 10 days. In some areas of Massachusetts, they have it at 7 days, but around the South Shore, it's usually like 10 days. In other states, it's a little different. Just to be clear, in other states, they go right to purchase and sale. They don't even have the two-step process. They just go.
Yeah, I think Florida is one of them.
California as well. Yeah.
So there's definitely some differences when it comes to our state and other states.
Yes, definitely.
But yeah, the due diligence thing, it's just, and when it comes to that time frame, so like I think that it could be shorter than 10 days is when, usually a seller wants to like speed it up a little bit. So,
Right.
They ask for, 7 days or so, like they negotiate to 7 days or even, shorter than that to give a smaller window of opportunity
Right.
to walk away. And sometimes that's because, they really need to sell the property and move on and whatever. But, whatever their motivation might be.
Right.
We only have about 5 minutes left, so
Wow.
I want to get through any of these that you see on our list that you definitely want to talk about before you can give your contact information out again.
Well, let's see. Should we talk about what a contingency is, or should we talk about the appraisal? Which one do you think is?
Yeah, why don't we go through a couple what a contingency is and gives a couple examples of those, and that'll be a great end of the show.
So actually, if you see an MLS CTG anyways, that means contingent. And the reason why it's not under agreement, UAG and CTG, is because it has a contingency. So sometimes the contingency is getting the purchase and sale signed. Sometimes the contingency is the home inspection, the home inspection period. Sometimes people leave it on for the appraisal. Maybe the person's paying way over asking and they're worried about whether or not the house is going to appraise at a certain price. So they leave it on the market just in case of that. The mortgage is another contingency. So anytime there's something written into the contract that says, we're going to buy this house, except that these things need to be done first.
Yeah.
So that's basically what it's saying. Like, we're going to buy the house, but before we do, we want we want a home inspection. We're getting a mortgage. We want to have an appraisal. These are all contingencies.
Well, it's like saying like we're willing to move forward contingent upon this specific
exactly.
thing.
Exactly.
And there was something I was going to say, and I totally forgot when it came to that. Oh, it's also important to note that, and your seller's agent is not just selling this house once. They have to sell it twice.
Yes.
So they sell it to a buyer.
3 times sometimes.
Yes, sometimes 3 times. And then they got to sell it to an appraiser.
Yeah.
They're the ones representing the bank and is going to give the final okay to give you that loan to purchase that property. So that the listing agent is selling the house multiple times.
Yeah, absolutely.
In the same transaction.
Look, even during the home inspection, to be honest, I always recommend that my sellers wait until the appraisal before they start packing, because during the home inspection period, the buyer's coming back and they love the house.
Yeah.
They're doing measurements.
Yeah.
They're all excited to
Yeah.
move in. And the last thing you want to do is trash it up when they come back for the
Yeah.
home inspection. So you have to, and the agent has to be there to, like, I go in and I turn the lights on just like I would an ordinary showing.
Yeah.
Because I want it to look just as good.
Yeah. Do you stay during your listings having home inspections?
Sometimes it depends, but 90% of the time lately, I've been I'll go and I'll turn the lights on and see if
Yeah.
there's any questions, and I'll let the buyer and the buyer's agent to do their thing.
Yeah.
because you want the buyer to stay in love with their house, right?
Yeah.
And you don't want someone hanging over you. At every,
No.
You know what I mean? It's always better with the. So anyway,
Yeah, no, there were during my purchase time, there were very few properties that I went to by myself. I always had somebody or a crew with me.
Yes.
Giving everybody's. I wanted everybody's opinion, so even though I'd be the one there at the end of the day. But any other contingency that you want to touch upon?
I think that's a good,
Yeah.
good, you know.
Yeah. I mean, and then once you get through that contingency period and you come to an agreement, both as a buyer and a seller, then you move on, you sign the purchase and sales agreement, and then you sort of just,
Do your loan paperwork.
you do your loan paperwork.
Get all the bank
You
statements.
do
and all.
your loan paper. Please always stay in constant contact with your loan officer if you're going for a mortgage.
And don't buy a car.
Don't
Just saying.
don't buy a car.
Don't buy furniture until you close.
Well, I had asked Jasmine. I was like, "What happens, if during my purchase project, process, for some reason somebody needed to buy a car?" And she's like, "Do not put that out in the universe, and talk to me beforehand, and see if there's somebody's card that you can borrow." Okay.
For those that don't know, it affects it will affect things, your credit score, whatnot.
Debt
your
to
credit
income ratio.
There's so many factors that
Yeah.
go into it. So you need to check with your loan professional before you make any purchases during that.
During that time period.
Yeah.
We have so many other things that we could talk about too, but why don't you give your contact information out one more time before we end our show?
Okay, so my name is Sue Bollinger, and my phone number is 508-317-5729.
One more time.
508-317-5729. And S. Bollinger at bostonconnect.com if you'd like to.
Yes, you can go to bostonconnect.com and find all of our contact information out there. You can go to talkrealestateroundtable.com, find all of our past shows, or you can go to your podcast app and type in Talk Real Estate Roundtable. I will be back on Saturday morning at 8 a.m. live with Sharon McNamara. I don't know what we're talking about, but we're talking about something about real estate. So stay tuned then. Bye, everyone. Bye. Thanks so much.
I was hoping somebody would like.